I knew that this phase of my life wasn't up leveling. I feel that the tests that have been coming through are going to be beneficial for the next phase of my growth. And I am aware of the changes and the patterns and trying to allow myself a lot of ease and support and self-love and care while in this season. For me, this has been probably one of the hardest lessons I've had to learn about my spiritual awakening. I knew it was going to be hard, but I thought the hardest part was going to be setting the boundaries and walking away from the toxic relationships and choosing myself as a recovering people pleaser. Here's how I thought the universe worked, right? I thought when I moved through that, when I made those difficult decisions, when those people fell off, when I set those challenging boundaries, I thought once I did all that, the rest would be effortless, and my blessings and my abundance and everything was going to flow to me with ease. Because that's what like all of the stories say, went through the rock bottom and saw the light at the end of the tunnel. And then after all that, the rainbows and sunshine. Thought I would be freer and all that. But what I'm realizing is the hardest part isn't even building the courage and the resilience to make those changes within yourself. The hardest part is leaving that past version of yourself, leaving behind the energy that no longer serves you, leaving behind the patterns that you've been holding on to out of self-preservation for this long that you don't need in your up level. But reconditioning yourself to leave that behind is so unfamiliar. The real work isn't choosing yourself once. It's choosing yourself again and again and again over time, every single time. Whew. Even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. Even when the old version of yourself whispers back, it's easier over here. We already know what it feels like over here, but you know that there is something greater on the other side. I thought that once I created the boundaries, my work would be done. And I know that boundaries are one of those buzzwords that floats around, and it seems like a lot of times it's said so frequently that it's kind of taken with a grain of salt. But I'm really one of those people that had to learn how to create boundaries in their relationships. That needed to recognize what it felt like when my boundaries were being crossed, because I had been repressing that familiarity of uncomfortability for so long. I hadn't realized it was cross boundaries. I'm getting better, let me tell you, getting better. Now that I'm learning boundaries, here's what I know. Boundaries aren't an endpoint. They are the door so that you can finally begin to feel into yourself. There's still more work to be done once you feel into yourself. Know that you're no longer pouring into what was draining you. What can you pour into yourself instead? How do you begin to fill your own cup? Whew! Sometimes walking away from toxic situations isn't enough. It isn't the final step. It's a first step, but it's not a final step. Especially if you're still carrying along the energy with you. And you may not even notice that you're carrying this energy because you become so conditioned into carrying that. And I had to ask myself, am I really allowing myself to let go? Am I really allowing myself to let go? Or am I just sidestepping this, still holding on to all the emotional baggage that I have still been carrying, but with now that I have the freedom to let go, I'm still conditioned in this space to carrying it. What does it feel like to let it go? Let me tell you, it's easier. Even though it's so hard to do, it's easier to physically distance yourself than it is to emotionally release yourself from the patterns. To stop replaying the past in a way that is seeking for a different ending that is, you're never going to achieve the ending that you wanted from that. Let it go. Sit it down. Let it go. And sometimes letting go isn't really the physical act of saying goodbye to a situation, but the release of not holding on to or not gripping onto the energy that is bound to that situation. Feels so heavy. The hardest part wasn't the endings. Like the endings were kind of celebratory. The hardest part is stepping into the unknown and surrendering into the uncertainty. Into the uncertainty. Trust in the uncertainty. Trusting that I don't have to force myself into a certain timeline that the universe has already laid out for me. Trusting that the universe isn't withholding anything from me, just waiting for me to raise my frequency and open myself up to the gifts that it's circulating me. Knowing that I don't have to manipulate anything because I already am. Because it already is. There's this version of me that still wants to control. There's this version of me that still needs to feel like I need to orchestrate the outcome of how everything should turn out in my favor to work for my highest good. I'm realizing that control is just fear disguising itself as a strategy. And the more that I'm trying to hold on to what's shifting away from me, the harder and the longer that it's taking for me to step into this new path, this new journey. I know that like a lot of times when you're up leveling, it's like kind of like it almost feels like a loss of the previous version of myself. And I thought that I no longer was attached to that previous version. I really did. But I now understand that there was still so much lingering doubt and uncertainty about what I have to look forward to, the endless possibilities. Clearing the space and allowing all of the new energy to come through. But holding myself in this uncertainty and the discomfort and trusting that what's meant for me is going to come to me no matter what. And I need to keep moving so that I can catch up to it, even if I can't see it. So here's where I am. I'm practicing. I'm leaning into my daily rituals. I'm learning how to choose myself daily. I'm resisting the urge to look back at what was. I'm letting the old version of myself dissolve without understanding why it needs to. I'm trusting that the universe already sees the higher version of me, and I don't need to align myself any greater, any better than what it already is, than what I already am. I just need to surrender to it. I just need to surrender to it. So if you're in this place too, if you feel like you're stepping into the unknown and it feels equally exciting and equally terrifying at the same time, know that you're not alone. Know that the version of you that you are becoming already exists. You're not lost. You're on the right path. It's so funny. It's like you're always on the right path, but you are. You're just in between who you were and who you're meant to be. That's all I got. I'm Danny Sinclair of My Piece of Space, and this is just a peaceful reflection. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in comments if it resonates. I'll see you guys next time.